Welcome to Daily Life Connection. Thanks for joining me again. Let's look today at the God who calls us out of the bushes. The God who calls us out of the bushes. In Genesis chapter 3, the tragic story of Adam and Eve, and how they thought they could perform their way to becoming more godly, and ended up cutting themselves off from the tree of life. And then they were ashamed and afraid, and they hid in the bushes. It says this in Genesis chapter 3. God comes to them. He'd been coming every day. He'd been coming every day and walking with them and being in relationship with them and loving them. And now they have done this awful thing, and they've fallen away from relationship with Him. They've pulled themselves back from relationship. And God comes to the garden and He doesn't see them, and He says to them, "Where are you?" in Genesis 3 and verse 9. And Adam sped back to him, "I heard the sound of you in the garden, and I was afraid, and I hid." I was afraid, and I hid. The reality is, ever since then, humanity has been in the bushes, hiding from God. You see, God didn't separate Himself from Adam and Eve. They separated themselves from Him. And He came looking for them, not to punish them, but they thought, you see, they hid because they were afraid. They assumed that God was going to be angry with them and punish them and make them pay. God came to them to announce to them that He would redeem them. He came to find them. He came to provide clothing for them and to care for them and to look after them. And He called them out of the bushes. And really, that's what God has been doing all through history. He's been calling to people, come out of the bushes, come out of your shame, come out of your fear, stop hiding from me, come and learn who I really am. You see, it's again the Luke 15 story. The younger brother left the father and went off and hid himself in a distant country. And when he finally came back, he learned the father wasn't who he thought he was at all. And that's what Jesus was constantly saying throughout His ministry. He was saying, you don't really know my Father. You're hiding in the bushes. You're hiding behind religion. You're hiding behind rebellion. You're hiding yourself in amassing things and achievements and money, and you're constantly. We do that all the time. We hide ourselves from God. We bury ourselves in Him or barricade ourselves from Him because we're afraid. We're afraid if we just come out and be really who we are. You see, Adam said, "I was afraid. I was ashamed because I was naked." Really, what that is talking to us about is He's saying, I'm ashamed to be honest with you about who I am. God, I don't want you to see me. I don't want you to see my darkness. I don't want you to see my shame. And that's what all through history, that's what the enemy has used to keep us hiding in the bushes, staying away from God. You know, over the years as a pastor, so many times I would know somebody in our congregation and they would mess up. They'd make a mistake. And you know what their reaction almost always was? Quit coming to church. Quit hanging around. They hid in the bushes because they felt ashamed and they felt afraid of condemnation and judgment. And that's not who God is at all. At all. He's the God who calls us out of the bushes. He's the God who says, "Come to me, and I'll give you rest. Come to me, and I'll love you. Come to me, and I'll forgive you. Come to me, and I'll provide for you. Come to me, and I'll take care of you." The father in the prodigal son story, that's not a God we have to hide in the bushes from, you see. And in that story, even the younger son says, "He's make me like a hired hand." He wanted to hide behind a workmanship relationship, a working relationship. Because you see, hired hands aren't very close to the father. The father said, no, I'm not going to have that. You're my son. I want you up really close to me. And the younger son found that was a place of incredible blessing. So, Adam and Eve hid in the bushes because they were afraid and ashamed. And God was calling them out of the bushes. You and I hide in our shame and our guilt and our fear of who God is, fear of letting Him see who we really are, and because of His reaction. And Jesus is saying, please, you got to stop that. It's because you have a wrong idea of who my Father is. The last couple of days we've been talking about the God who opens blind eyes, the God who turns on the lights. In Jesus, He did that for us. Why did He do that? So that we'd come out of the bushes, so that we'd stop hiding in our fear, because we can see Him for who He really is. So today, the God who calls us out of the bushes. Don't let your shame, don't let fear keep you from being just open and honest in who you are before God. He loves you as you is, as is, and where you are. And He will love on you extravagantly when you come out of the bushes. That's good news. Let's think about it, and we'll talk again tomorrow.